morning and thank you very much for your time. Now, we've got strikes again looming. They may disrupt the FA Cup, Eurovision, the Epsom Derby. Have the unions just simply been running rings around government on your watch, Mr Harper?
No, I don't agree with that, Camilla. On what I promised to do, I said we would make sure we facilitated fair and reasonable and affordable pay offers to the trade unions. Now, the one that was done by Network Rail to RMT, the RMT executive put that one to their members, and by a big margin, 90% turnout, a 76% yes vote, their members on Network Rail accepted it. So we've resolved the dispute there. What is inexplicable to me is that on the train operating companies, where a very similar offer, similar value has been made to the RMT, their executive won't even put it, for the third time, won't put it to their members. I think their members should be given the chance to have a say on it. And the same with the offer that's been made to train drivers. You know, train drivers are well paid, average salary £60,000 a year. They've had a fair and reasonable pay offer that would take that to close on £65,000 a year, should be put to their members and let their members make a decision.
OK, so do you think train drivers are paid enough then?
Well, look, they've been given a fair and reasonable pay offer, and I think, by the way, the targeting of these big events is terrible. I've met the head of Ukrainian railways. I mean, Putin's been targeting Ukrainian the railways. Hundreds of railway workers have been killed. We should be standing in solidarity with them. The Eurovision Song Contest is not ours. We're hosting it for Ukraine, rather than the rail workers targeting events and hitting families who have saved up a lot of money to go to them. I think they should put the fair and reasonable pay offers to their members, let their members make a decision. I think that would be the right thing to do. OK.
Our People's panellist, Neil, there, is asking you a question about the infrastructure of the transport network in general. We know that there are concerns over the availability of trains, of the price of fares has gone up exponentially, not least because of the cost of living crisis. People, particularly in the north, think they're not getting a good service. I live in a rural area. There are potholes all over the place. What is the government doing about all of these problems?
Well, let me try and pick up all of those, Camilla. So first of all, we're spending a considerable amount of money. So I've got a £20 billion capital budget, which we spend carefully across all of those modes of travel. Conscious that most people drive, we're investing in our existing road infrastructure, investing more money in repairing it. You'll know that the Chancellor in the budget found several £100 million extra to deal with potholes, and we're tightening up the rules around utility companies that dig up roads so that they have to put them back in a better state. We're also investing in our rail infrastructure, and we're doing that in a way that's affordable to the taxpayer. So I'm very conscious that transport's about keeping the country moving. So a lot of investment, dealing with inflation pressures, but also making sure we deliver good infrastructure and deal with the day-to-day problems that people face across the country.
But people in the north think that they're not getting good infrastructure. Out of interest, have you ever tried to travel by rail between Manchester and Leeds in rush hour?
So I think you're very cleverly asking me there about the TransPennine Express service, which the contract for which expires at the end of May. I've got to make a decision about that contract, and I'm very clear I'm going to make a decision that's in the interest of passengers. There's a limit to what I can say at the moment because I've got to make a legally robust and defensible decision, but I've heard what MPs from all parties have said about it. I've listened to what the travelling public's got to say, and no option is off the table.
Have you ever made that journey, though, personally?
Not that specific journey, but I'm very clear I've heard from members of Parliament and from their constituents about the challenges that they've had using that rail service, and I'm very clear about it. I've had the managing director of that company in to talk through the issues, and I said I've got to make a decision before the contract expires, the existing contract expires at the end of the month, but I've got to do that in a legally defensible way. So there's a limit, sadly, to what I can say on your programme, and I haven't yet taken that decision.
I know, but GB viewers and listeners will be astonished by that. Do you not use the rail system in the north much?
Yes, I do. In fact, I was just the last few days I was in Scotland. I took the sleeper train all the way up to Scotland, and I use the rail service frequently to get from my constituency to London. So I'm a regular rail user. So I have exactly the same experiences as everybody else. Sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's less good. And I'm always focused with my team and working closely with the rail minister on making sure we can improve services for passengers. And just your point, by the way, about fares, it was one of the reasons why we did the biggest ever intervention in the rail system this year. Instead of allowing the regular formula to kick in, we actually held rail fares down, only rising at the level that earnings are rising, exactly to recognise the fact that the cost of living is a challenge for people. So we kept rail fares much lower than they would otherwise have been.
Let's move on to smart motorways. People watching this are confused because the government's decided to scrap any new smart motorways because they're not safe, and yet it's keeping the old ones. If the new ones aren't safe, then why are the old ones?
No, well, that's not why the government's decided to cancel new ones. Smart motorways, if you actually look at the data as far as casualties are concerned, smart motorways are actually the safest roads on the strategic road network. The reason why we're not doing any new ones, for two reasons. One is partly because of the cost, but also it's because the public don't have confidence in them. And I think it's important that the public are not just safe on our roads, but have the confidence to be safe on our roads, and that's why we're not delivering any new ones. What we're doing on the existing ones, and the two that are going to be completed, is that we're rolling out safety improvements, both in terms of the technology, but also a very significantly larger number of emergency areas. There'll be emergency areas every 3/4 of a mile, so actually if somebody does break down, there'll be somewhere safe that they can get off of the motorway and have their car while they wait to be recovered. So I think it's that package of safety improvements which is also very important.
Do you accept that HS2 is one of the reasons that you lost Chesham and Amersham in the by-election, and that you're going to lose more votes on Thursday because of this ill-fated and unpopular train project?
No, I don't actually, and I think it's a really important piece of investment in our transport infrastructure for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's about the scheme itself. It's actually delivering economic transformation. It's a big investment in capacity. So actually one of the things it will do, even for people that don't use it, frees up a load of capacity on the West Coast main line, enabling us to deliver better services, passenger services, but also freight services to get freight off of our roads and onto rail. It's a significant investment. And look, let me give you an example. Lots of people, when we were delivering Crossrail, moaned about the cost and the delays. Now that it's the Elizabeth line and it's open, it's very popular, and no one thinks that we shouldn't have invested the money to deliver it. And I'm confident that once HS2 is open and functioning, that's exactly what people will think then.
But you say once it's opening and functioning, actually it's not going to come to London for several years. What's the point in the rail link if it doesn't come into Euston?
Well, look, we've committed to having it run from Euston to Manchester. I have had to make some delays on Euston Station and on the middle section of the rail line, because I've also got to make sure that our plans are affordable for the taxpayer, and inflation is running very high at the moment. So phase one is from Old Oak Common in West London all the way through to just north of Birmingham. We are absolutely delivering that full steam ahead. That is mobilised, all the contractors are working on it, and that is being built. And if you go to Birmingham and you talk to Andy Street, you'll see the transformation that it's having in that city, and the government is committed to delivering it all the way from Euston to Manchester, and those plans are being done. Again, there's a small delay in delivering them, but we're committed to taking that railway line right into the heart of central London.
Does the government have the power to stop Sadiq Khan's ULEZ, which is proving to be more unpopular by the day?
It is very unpopular, absolutely right, but it is the Mayor of London's responsibility. The power to roll out schemes like that are devolved, so it is his responsibility, it is his decision, and my message is very clear. If you don't like what he's doing, then you'll have an opportunity, Londoners will have an opportunity in the ballot box next year to express that view very clearly. You're right, it's unpopular. I've had it raised with me by lots lots of people, not just in London but around London. But I don't have the power to stop it happening. It's a devolved responsibility. The Mayor of London is responsible for it. He is accountable, and it's for voters to hold him accountable.
Very quick question, Mr. Harper, which requires a very brief answer. We've seen this cartoon depicting the BBC chairman in The Guardian. It's been accused of being anti-Semitic. Do you think that depiction of Richard Sharp is anti-Semitic?
Well, I think the fact that The Guardian's apologised and has taken the cartoon down rather demonstrates
is it
they
anti-Semitic?
don't think it's very suitable. I just think, well, anti-Semitism is totally unacceptable, and I think if you look at that cartoon, there are lots of anti-Semitic tropes that are expressed in the cartoon, and The Guardian shouldn't have used it, and the fact that they've taken it down and they've apologised rather suggests that they made a bad judgment.
Thank you for joining me.